everybody, I'm Carla with Race to Walk, and it is time for another update in Hack the Saga. So last time I did one of these, it was all kinds of a mess, and if you go on my website at Race to Walk TV or on the new channel that I launched, which is Hack the Saga, you can see what a mess it was. They were messing with the input. It was black the entire time. Let's see. In just a second. This looks like it might also be weird, so let me just try it again. Anyway, and so now I'm checking on my channel itself, and oh yeah, now it shows up. Now it shows up that I'm live. So anyway, that's why the reason for why it's named Hack the Saga, because I have been hacked literally on a daily basis since December 2023. And unfortunately, it depends on how you look at it. It could just be some random person that I didn't know and wouldn't have known how to track them down. But as it turns out, it was people who I knew from the Apologetics program at what was then used to be known as Houston Baptist University, is now known as Houston Christian University, and the people that I was associated with through an unexpected journal. So what an unexpected journal is or was, I don't even know what it is at this point, but I have a master's degree in cultural apologetics from Houston Baptist University. I graduated in December of 2017, which I had already been publishing on my website, racetowalk.org, since 2013. So this predated my graduate degree. I was already writing, publishing that. In August, or not August, but April of 2018, people that at the time I considered friends, fellow alumni and current students from the Apologetics program, launched an unexpected journal, which was a quarterly journal dedicated to Christian apologetics, and most specifically cultural apologetics. You may have heard cultural apologetics used in different ways. A lot of people that say that they're cultural apologists are really polemicists. They really don't understand the difference between regular apologetics, polemics, where you're basically attacking the other person's position, and cultural apologetics. So using C.S. Lewis as an example, he was an apologist among many things. He was a literature professor. Most people know him if they're not into, theology and philosophy and apologetics. They know him through his Chronicles of Narnia. So the Chronicles of Narnia are they're really cultural apologetics. So what he illustrates in the Chronicles is actually the same things he's discussing in his book, Mere Christianity. And there's a lot of pairings between philosophy or theological works that C.S. Lewis wrote and his fiction. So just for example, his Space Trilogy or the Ransom Trilogy or Cosmic Trilogy, it's people refer to it in different ways, but he wrote Out of the Silent Planet, Pearlandria, and That Hideous Strength. And That Hideous Strength is actually a depiction of what Lewis discusses in The Abolition of Man. So, we can know facts, but when you see it as a picture, then that resonates more with people. We understand what it means when we understand the context. And that's the same way that Jesus taught. He, it says in the Bible that he never spoke to normal people, regular people or the crowds, except for in stories. Now, the Sermon on the Mount is I would say that's an exception, but that's really kind of more, I think, a clarification of principles that the Jews of his day already knew from the Torah and the other writings. So it wasn't like a new teaching, but he made more of an impact and made it real by teaching in parables. So that's what cultural apologetics is. And at the time we were going through the program and we felt like there really wasn't, we had been doing all this work in the program and there really wasn't a place to publish that really fit that niche, right? And so we made one. We created it. It was completely bootstrapped. We had Zach Small, who was the original managing editor, registered the domain name, paid for the hosting, and found the original theme and just started setting it up. I was the person who put together the original manuscripts because when we first published in April of 2018, our initial issue, The Abolition of Man, it was just online. I mean, the intent was always to publish in a physical form, but it took us a while to get there because of all the requirements to be on these direct-to-print platforms, such as now it's Amazon KDP. But at the time, it was CreateSpace. So we're switching here to the Unexpected Journal and why I'm not affiliated with them anymore. And it's extended beyond my initial resignation from the board that when I stepped down in August of 2024. So back to getting the books in a print form. At the time, Amazon had bought CreateSpace, but CreateSpace hadn't merged over to the Amazon platform. So when I was putting the first issues together, we submitted the first one to Amazon and they rejected it because we had already published the essays online and their copyright check caught that it was published online. So we had to prove that we had the right to publish them. And that required a writer's agreement from each of the contributors. So those first two issues that we had I was putting out to begin with, fortunately, it was all people who were in the program, and that were part of putting it out. So we kind of put together one and submitted it, and CreateSpace said, no, this isn't sufficient. And so some of the people on the board had a couple of friends who were attorneys, and this took us about 2 months to get through. And at the end of the day, we had a writer's agreement that met CreateSpace's approval. And what that writer's agreement said was that an Unexpected Journal had the right to exclusively publish what was submitted to them for 90 days from the date of publication. So while that issue was a current issue, we had the exclusive right to publish. And then after that, we had a non-exclusive right just so we could keep the issues online, right? And so that was the agreement. People just submitted. We weren't paying them, so we were not buying the rights to it. People received no compensation for it. And so our intent was, we appreciated their contribution to this effort that we were starting, and we wanted to honor their work. And so the contributor always kept the copyright. That was the intent. That's what the original agreements were. And there were some times when some people even wanted to see, when they submitted it, it would go through content editing we'd have 2 content editors, and they would go back and forth with the writer if there needed to be any changes or revisions or tightening it up, or if some arguments weren't super tight, we'd help them work through it. And then we'd go through copy editing. And the only thing we really changed without giving it a run by the author was like copy editing, like commas, ellipses, was always, and dashes, the formatting on that, I always had to go through and clean those up. But we didn't change anything. The writer had the final say over what was published. There was one issue where this is the summer issue of 2020, the science fiction issue, we had an 8,000 word essay that was, I mean, this is the thing. It had already gone through content editing and copy editing. And I had compiled it in the manuscript. I was working on the digital format, and I always would hyperlink the links in the digital version. And so I'm looking at the sources, and I hadn't edited that one, so I didn't know what he was really saying or what the argument was. And I'm looking at some of the links. I'm like, what is he saying? And so I asked Zach, so what's the deal with this? And what is this exactly? And so Zach, I don't know how this got past content editing to begin with, but he revisited the essay. And, if you remember the summer of 2020, it was all kinds of crazy. And what the person's argument was that racism really wasn't a thing anymore. And this is right in the middle of the George Floyd riots. Or when they were protesting. I wouldn't call much of them riots, but when this whole controversy was going on. And it wasn't just, if you remember, it wasn't just George Floyd. There was the same sort of brutality was coming up over and over and over again. And personally, it's not that I necessarily disagreed with him so much, but what the summer of 2020 showed us, for those of us who aren't, and the target of racism all the time, is that it really hadn't progressed as much as we might like to think. It really hadn't. And you could not be an honest person and look at the situation that was playing out on the news and in the streets every single day and claim otherwise. I just don't think you can. And so I can't even remember. It was like one or two sentences that, we discussed it as a board. We had several meetings about it. And we just said, these two sentences, if you can just take them out, then we're good. I mean, there's some publications you can read and you can see that the editors are basically overwriting the authors, that their voice is the one that you hear in every single essay. And we were really trying to make it so that, the author's voice was always honored. These are their thoughts that they're presenting. We want to help strengthen them, but also, we're accountable for the content that's going out, right? And, we don't have to agree with everybody, but there also needs to be, a sensitivity to who's going to be receiving it and the situation in which it's landing, right? And so we just said, these two sentences, if you can take them out, then we'll be good, right? And I personally may not have agreed with all of his conclusions that he was using or that he came to and using these articles to support, but the argument was there. I may not agree with your conclusion, but you have a right to say what you think, right? And he wouldn't do it. And so that one we had to pull at the last minute. The print version was actually online already, and we had to pull it and replace it at the last minute. But that's just an example. I mean, we don't change what the author says, right? They have the final say because it's their voice, their words. So we don't overwrite that, or we didn't change it. Even to the point of the layout, like Michael Ward, he would ask for to have a proof of his essay as it was laying out in the manuscript. And so I would do that. I would get it all done, and then I would print, save his article as it was going to be in the manuscript in a PDF and send it to him so he could have the final say on that. Because again, it's his words, how they're presented, it reflects on him, right? Even though I'm the one putting it together. If I make it look like a mess, that's a reflection on him. So that's just the mindset we had in the beginning. And so I was involved from 2018 through, I resigned from the board in 2024. And Zach stepped down as the managing editor after the mystery issue in the spring of 2023. So then we had other people that stepped in that had been around since the beginning too. They weren't necessarily on the board the whole time, but they were there from the beginning. So this isn't like an issue where people that aren't familiar with the culture, the background, the intent and the spirit of the journal from the beginning and coming in and messing it up, that wasn't the case. That wasn't what was going on. These were people that had been there, even if they weren't on the board and as involved. And so we had other people involved. They were, this is the thing. I've been involved in other organizations, and when somebody's in charge of it, you can give input into it, but in the end, if they have the position of, we had Jason Smith was the president of the board, Jasmine Biggs was the editor-in-chief. I may not agree with all of their decisions, and, I don't know if, I think there's only one board meeting that I missed, but, anyway. And also it wasn't my life, right? I had other things going on, and so I give my input, but they have the final decision. So anyway, it goes forward. I'm December 2023. I'm, start getting hacked, getting stalked, just really malevolent messages coming through these fake accounts on social media. And turns out that all the hostility and the nastiness are actually coming from people I know that were from the journal and the Apologetics program, hiding behind fake accounts. And they were the ones that were the primary attackers and stalking me and hacking me. And that still continued literally to this day. So, I didn't know this in August of 24. I had just begun to realize that these people were involved. I didn't know the extent of it, but I have not had contact with them since August of 2024. I resigned from the board, and I think I have another live stream where I read the letter where I resigned from the board. But just in bizarro world, I guess saying that you are no longer associated with them does not really sink or something. I don't know, because they were trying to fake my involvement as late as November 2024. So I've said this several times. I had no association with them apart from that I invested a lot of my time in publishing the journal and promoting them. And this should have been a clue from the beginning. I cannot remember, other than Carice Gillen, I cannot remember a single person that's ever commented on a video, an article, shared anything of mine ever. And that should have been a clue. When I was in real estate in Oregon in the 90s, I went to a conference or a training session by Brian Buffini, who was then, a trainer. And one of the things he said was that givers give and losers suck. And they're losers and users. I mean, that's basically what it is. They also were impersonating me through my businesses, interfering with my emails. It's just, you ask me why. I try not to enter the mindset of dumb, evil, and stupid, because that's just what I consider them at this point. So I don't know. Maybe it will come out in court hearings when they have to explain their actions. I don't know. But anyway, that's continued on. But like I said, I haven't had any contact with them. My only association with them was the journal, which I stepped away from in August of 2024. They've continued to try to fake it. And I think, I'm not going to get into the rest of it, but what I wanted to focus on today is that this is truly, I personally stepped away, but I didn't do anything about my articles, right? They were there, they were published, and they were still on the site. So on Sunday, I sent a demand letter to the board member or the people who had been on the board when I stepped down. I don't even know who's on the board at this point. I mean, it doesn't even look to me like the whole thing is even functioning. I mean, if you can find somewhere where it says who's in charge, you get a brownie point. But anyway, so I'm just going to read this. This is on my if you look below here, it says the alvarez's.com notice to AUJ. That's actually my personal website. And this is where I have the letter. I sent it to them, but, they play games about, playing dumb, like, I don't know, like they don't get information or whatever. So, I'm sending this certified mail to the registered agent. And I'm posting it on my website just so there's no confusion about what's going on. So anyway, this is what I wrote. I'm just going to read it. So regarding the publication of this notice, it may seem a little odd to post this publicly. My first choice, and what I have attempted to do since August 2024, was to resolve this by reporting the actions to proper authorities and connect with competent legal counsel to handle the intellectual property theft and tortious interference with my business's publications and ministries. However, the people involved launched a systematic campaign over the past 20 months to block my communications to prevent me from personally defending my work and reputation. Their continued attacks and the failure of authorities to respond is the reason I began live streaming about the attacks in progress in August 2024. And this is a Hack the Saga series. I have already sent this to the people responsible privately. The publication here is to ensure that it is not swept under the rug. So this is what I wrote. To the board of directors, managers, and affiliates of an unexpected journal. Notice of copyright infringement, breach of contract, theft of intellectual property, and demand for cease and desist. Dear members of the board and management of an unexpected journal, this letter serves as formal notice of a demand to immediately cease all publication of my work, remove all instances of my work from distribution, and halt the creation of any derivative works, including but not limited to artificial intelligence AI models trained on my content. Background and scope of the license. I, Carla M. Salih Alvarez, was a founding board member of an unexpected journal and the primary person responsible for the production and distributions of issues from April 2018 through December 2023. Now, I didn't step down until August of 2024, but they had this thing where Jason Smith was going to be taking over basically what I had been doing as far as production and getting the distribution out, which I'm like, thank you, Jesus. I mean, that was a lot of work. At the time, I was glad that someone was willing to take that on. And now I'm like, I have no idea. I literally don't trust anything related to that now. During this period, I negotiated the writer's agreement with our primary distribution platform, CreateSpace. The original writer's agreement, under which all my essays were submitted, granted an unexpected journal, 1, an exclusive right to publish for 90 days following the publication of the specific issue in the work in which the work appeared. 2, a non-exclusive right thereafter solely for the purpose of keeping the specific printed and digital issues for sale. Crucially, the agreement stipulated that copyright remained with the contributor. The agreement did not grant an unexpected journal the right to license, assign, or sell the work to third parties, create derivative works beyond the specific issue of publication, utilize the content for machine learning, artificial intelligence training, dataset generation, or any other automated processing, access, copy, or extract content from my personal devices, accounts, or private files, which they've done and still do, alter, edit, or sabotage the integrity of the work. So anyway, 2, notice of breach, copyright infringement, and theft. Based on my review and documentation, an unexpected journal and its affiliates have materially breached the aforementioned agreement and violated federal copyright laws, specifically 1, exceeding license scope. The journal has utilized my work for purposes far beyond the agreed upon sale of issues, including the creation of derivative works and alleged training of AI models. Such actions constitute copyright infringement under 17 U.S.C. 501 as they exceed the scope of the limited license granted. 2, unauthorized access and theft. I have documentation that my personal devices and accounts were accessed without authorization. Content was extracted, copied, and distributed from my laptop and private files, including unpublished works, transcripts, and materials that were never submitted for publication and never authorized for any use. 3, unauthorized derivative works. There is substantial evidence that my essays have been substantially altered and used to recreate derivative works without my consent. 4, plagiarism and misappropriation. Beyond the journal's own publications, my work has been plagiarized and distributed across other platforms without attribution or compensation. 5, failure to steward IP. As noted in my resignation letter, August 2024, the journal failed to address counterfeit copies and copyright violations, effectively invalidating its stewardship rights. Furthermore, the apparent cessation of operations following the Dorothy Sayers issue, Advent 2024, which they didn't even get out to like February 2025, means the entity is no longer capable of fulfilling its contractual obligations to steward the intellectual property. 3, demand for removal of all work. Effective immediately, you are demanded to remove all my work from an Unexpected Journal website, all print and digital issues, and any AI models or databases containing my content. This includes, but is not limited to, the following specific works: From the River to the Green Book, Lewis Relativism and Constructivism in Education, Volume 1, Issue 1, 2018. The Making of a Hero, Volume 1, Issue 2, 2018. Lava, A Story of Love and Hope, Volume 1, Issue 2, 2018. Hope, Life, and the Fountain of Trevi, Volume 1, Issue 2, 2018. Imagination and Its Role in Faith, Volume 2, Issue 1, 2019. Serenity and the Theodicy of Josh Whedon, Volume 2, Issue 2, 2019. Melchizedek, Bombadil, and the Numinous in the Lord of the Rings, Volume 3, Issue 1, 2020. Ethics of the Matrix, Volume 3, Issue 2, 2020. Gremlins and the Second Way, Volume 3, Issue 2, 2020. Death, Grief, and Hope and Pearl, Volume 3, Issue 3, 2020. The Power of the Storyteller, Jesus and Aesop, Volume 4, Issue 3, 2021. Job and His Dragon, Volume 5, Issue 2, 2022. Additionally, this demand extends to all unpublished manuscripts, drafts, and notes stored on my devices that were accessed without authorization, all transcripts, recordings, and audio and video content that was ripped or copied from my accounts, platforms, websites, or devices. Any other work, published or unpublished, that was obtained through unauthorized access to my devices, accounts, or communications. 4, cease and desist harassment, unauthorized access, and misrepresentation. Separately, I hereby demand an immediate cessation of all actions representing an association between myself and an unexpected journal, its board members or affiliates. I have documentation indicating that board members and affiliates have falsely represented themselves as associated with my businesses, Legacy Marketing Services, Effusion Media Group, and brands Raised to Walk and Bright Sheep Ministries. They've illegally accessed my devices and accounts without authorization. They've engaged in sabotage of my websites and SEO poisoning campaigns. They've diverted funds and withheld communications. They've extracted and distributed content from my private files without consent. These actions constitute tortious interference, potential violations of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, 18 U.S.C. 1030, copyright infringement, 17 U.S.C. 501, and criminal acts. I have previously filed a report with the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Department of Justice, dated July 28, 2024, regarding these matters. 5, deadline and consequences. You have 30 days from receipt of this letter to 1, permanently remove all my work from all digital and physical platforms. 2, confirm in writing that no AI models, derivative works, transcripts, or other materials containing my content remain in existence or active training sets. 3, cease all unauthorized contact and representation of association. 4, remove my email address from all mailing lists and website databases. 5, provide a written accounting of all locations where my work currently exists or has been distributed. Failure to comply with these demands will leave me no choice but to pursue all available legal remedies, including filing a lawsuit for copyright infringement, breach of contract, conversion and damages, and seeking injunctive relief. I will also cooperate fully with federal and state authorities regarding the criminal allegations of unauthorized access, theft, and fraud. So please direct all future correspondence regarding this matter to me at, and I listed, and then anyway. So here's the deal. What they've been doing lately is they have been, just in the past month, I think I mentioned this in my last live stream that they sabotaged, but they got some sort of control over my main Legacy Marketing Gmail account. We're going to talk a little bit about how this stuff happens, and that it's not just the fact that they're criminal losers, but that there is an entire situation created by these tech companies that don't think they need to pay for programmers and actual customer service that create the circumstances where this is allowed to happen. But anyway, I have been publishing online since 2024. I've had an AdSense account, which is, so if you look at, Google has a ton of different platforms and properties. Most people are familiar with Google Drive and Gmail, but they have so many more different things in their whole ecosystem of services. And that's part of the issue, right? There's this huge mass of just different platforms, and they've been going on for 20 years, right? And so they've added and expanded, and then they're firing their programmers. So this is how this mess starts to begin. But anyway, some of the other things, like if you are publishing a website, you're probably using Google Analytics to be able to tell, what the traffic to your site is. You're probably using Google Search Console, where you submit site maps of your website, so it makes it easier for Google to index it, and you can track how people find you. There's Google Tag Manager, which is like this whole other little ecosystem of being able to manage your site better. It's just a ton of stuff. There's a ton of stuff. And one of the things that they have is they have, you can run ads on Google, right? And I actually have an article from, I think, 2025 that I wrote on my website on legacy marketing about advertising on Google. But businesses can advertise on Google, and it goes through whatever their content platform is, whether it's on, it's in search, whether it's running ads on YouTube, whatever. But one of the places where they run it is on individual sites. And so for publishers, that's known as AdSense. So you can sign up for AdSense. If you're a publisher, you can sign up for AdSense, and then you get this code that you can put in on your articles, and any ads that run on your site, you get a percentage of the revenue. Okay, so this has been, I think it started in 2023. I've had that AdSense account since 2024. And in the past, I've had my own sites that I publish. I did a lot of like little niche websites that I would just get an idea for, and then I'd start it and publish it. So over the years, we're talking 23 years, I've had a lot of different sites attached to that AdSense account because I've had, and also my Google Analytics account because I've managed clients. So people, if they're from a different site coming in, it's not going to raise a red flag or be unusual, right? Does that make sense? So what I think that they've done, what it looks like to me, is that, okay, this isn't a thing. This is, I know, because I've seen the account. They got some sort of control over the AdSense account. The other thing about AdSense is that if you're monetized on YouTube, then the way you're paid is through an AdSense account. Now, my channels, Race to Walk and my legacy marketing, which they've claimed like ownership of, it's obvious that there's like some sort of, I guess they have multi-channel networks where they have a mass amount of channels, and that they actually have a superior access to even what the channel owner has. It's supposed to be signed up, there's supposed to be an agreement about that. I never, ever agreed to having my channels subsumed into some Borg of a multi-channel content network. I never did that. But anyway, money earned through YouTube goes to AdSense. Okay, so there's a connection between my jacked channels that somebody else has more control over than I do, and this AdSense account, which when I logged in a couple weeks ago, I was looking at it, and it was obviously what I was seeing was not the true interface, because the history was wrong, the payment was wrong, the history of the payment was wrong. The other weird thing was that I had removed all of the associations from that particular Gmail account and my website. All my websites, I'd taken it off. So there should not have been anything verified on that AdSense account because I removed it. They were all showing as unverified except for my Race to Walk site. So anyway, I broke that. I went into I explained this in my other live stream, but I went into where it says different associations. Like it's not as common anymore, but it used to be you could go into some of these sites like Hub Pages, Docs Talk, things like that. And if your content got a lot of views, you would earn a share of the revenue off of that for advertising. But so I had a whole list of things I totally forgot about. Like I said, I've had this for 23 years. And one of them it was showing as YouTube, which was enabled, but I couldn't see anything on it. Well, the thing is, I've said this before, on my YouTube channels, the interface I see is jacked, right? So I'm not showing that I'm monetized, but AdSense is showing that. So I just thought, forget this. I have been trying to get a response to this for literally 2 years now, and I haven't. And so I just deleted the AdSense account. This was on Sunday afternoon on May 22nd. The next day, 9:45, I can tell there was somebody that was supposed to be managing that woke up and found that it was deleted, and literally all hell broke loose. And I've been hacked continually. There's been something going on almost daily, but it has been really intense since then. And so what they've been doing lately is that they've been trying to, because this is the thing, my sites were the proof and the verification for the AdSense account, right? And I don't know if they were trying to get that one reinstated. I don't know. And they were trying to get my my different sites and channels verified again, so they could say, oh yeah, this is the real thing. I'm not sure. It's not like they tell me these things. But anyway, I had moved all of my sites and the management over to a brand new email because this one's screwed. My 20-year-old Gmail account is completely screwed. I don't know. I've broken every API, try to clean it up every way I can, and it's still not getting emails and things through the way I should. So anyway, moved to a brand new account, and they're like flies on, going after they're following the YouTube channels. And so it's been on the 23rd that day. I don't know if they just must have like a direct dial to some broker for, on the dark web to get hackers to send after me, because they got a login somehow on my Gmail account, the new one, where it's completely tied. It's like I can't break the association. I will log out, and it's on my iPad. So I will log out, change the password. I rotated the two-factor authentication, all of that. Nothing works. I log back in, and it's showing as one. It's connected to my login. So it will show as one login, one session when I'm checking my devices. So if you go to, just do this, just see what comes up for you. Go to whether your Gmail, click on, or just on my account or accounts for google.com, but click on the icon for your name, right? And then go to manage my Google account, and then go to sign in security and see what's under devices. So since this heavy sabotage and attacks, I keep a pretty close eye on the logins. So I notice if there's an extra one, right? And what they did on May 23rd, it's somehow they got it married. So they have an in on that Gmail, but when I look at the sign in, it doesn't show it. If I change the password, then what happens is I'll get a notice from Google saying, you'll stay logged in on the device you're on and an Apple 9th generation, which is the device that I'm on. So somehow they fooled it so Google thinks that their login is on my iPad. I don't know. I'm not a criminal, so I don't know how they do this. But anyway, so I change that. I start cycling through, changing passwords until I get a clean one where that doesn't. But anyway, I've read a lot about this. I guess it's some sort of persistent session that it basically, it's even changing passwords doesn't break it. So this is one of the things. If Google had, most platforms have this, there's an option to log out of all other sessions. Google doesn't even have that, which is literally it's a heyday for the criminals, because they can just get one of these sessions and you cannot get them out. So anyway, this is what happened. So they were doing all that, and so it didn't look to me. I saw that they had gotten submitted another verification for not HTTPS, but just a regular link for my sites. Deleted that, deleted the code, where that was authorizing it. Then they started going after my Cloudflare account. So I know this is a lot, but I'm just explaining the extent and the lunacy of these people. So when you go and register a domain name, so I have racetowalk.org. Okay, right now that's registered at Namecheap. There's companies called Registrars where you can go and register a domain, right? And a lot of these companies sell all-in-one packages like GoDaddy, another registrar that's oh, you can get everything right here. I don't recommend that. I honestly don't. But some people do that because it's just easier. But there's an option on Namecheap where you're managing your domain that you can have another service handle what happens with the domain. So I'll show you because this is part of my sabotage. I was going to show you this last time. So there's called, I think I switched it. I don't know. Anyway, there's domain name servers, right? And so there's all these records that tell the internet what to do with your domain. So there's a record for, this is where you're going to send this traffic to this server where our website files are hosted. You can set records for your email. So I want to be able to send email on this domain, right? So if you send a message to Carla@racetowalk.org, that's managed by those DNS records. There's also additional records for emails so that the receiving server knows that this is actually a valid email, that the people whoever's sending this is the actual person. Because, and there was a thing here, this must be bothering somebody. Because they can, if they can hack something on your DNS records, right? Then they can send emails as you. And this is what they did. This is what they have done. So here's the deal. I've been publishing online since 2000. Well, I started my website, Legacy Marketing Services, in 2003, but I've been publishing stuff all this time. I used to manage my DNS records just on my hosting, right? One of my first solid hosts was HostGator. This is before they got bought out by EIG and turned to crap. But anyway, I just, if things need to be set up, I'd follow directions and just kind of go on from there. And what I did not do was go back out and 20 years of stuff. 20 years just of, trying different platforms, different programs, just experimenting with things, 20 years of that. And I never went back and cleaned up my DNS. Not a good plan. Don't recommend that. You don't want to do that. That's not something you want to do. So, unbeknownst to me, they had hacked records, DNS records on my domain. This is before I started cleaning it out and moving it over. They'd hacked it on my domain, and they were impersonating me using my own emails and my own domains, and things like random stuff, like my Restoring Hope conference. I don't know what they were doing with that, but I've gotten some of the emails that have come in that they've been using on it, because the email that they were using isn't still there, but I'm collecting it because it's my domain. Anyway, so this is part of the frenzy of them going after my accounts, because they don't operate as themselves. They hide behind other people's names, other people's businesses, other people's reputations, or they're behind a fake sock puppet account. They don't stand for themselves, right? Or build anything themselves. So anyway, Namecheap is a registrar. All of my DNS records are handled through Cloudflare. And you'll see, if you visit a site, a lot of times you'll see that it will say, oh, this is a challenge from Cloudflare. You've probably seen that. So it's managing the DNS, the domain name servers, but it's also storing versions or versions of your pages on their server, so you're not getting hit by denial of service attacks. If there's glitches in the internet, your site will still load, things like that. So that's part of what Cloudflare does. So anyway, I've started using, when I switched to Cloudflare and Proton, that was one big hiccup in their little crime syndicate. And so they started attacking in other ways. But recently, after I deleted the AdSense account, again, they were trying different ways to get a lockdown on the new Gmail that I was using. And then they started going after my Cloudflare account. And, I'll just be out working on something, and they send some idiot in to steal a session and get in. And so anyway, that's what they've been going after. And one time I was sitting somewhere, and I had just been working in Cloudflare. And within 5 minutes, somebody had stolen the session, changed the password, changed the two-factor authentication, and I couldn't get it back. And Cloudflare doesn't really have customer service either. So I just had to create a new Cloudflare account and move everything as fast as I could. And I've done that a couple times. So because Cloudflare is not the control, right? They went after my Namecheap account, which is my registrar. So here's the thing. I've had an account with Namecheap, I think, since, I want to say 2013. It's been a long time. And I started moving to them after, I was working with somebody, and he was complaining. I used to use GoDaddy all the time. He was complaining because he called in and they were trying to sell him all this stuff. And he's like, I just would log into my dashboard. I didn't with GoDaddy. I had called them in the past, and they had good customer service, but with this negative feedback from a client, I started going with Namecheap, and also with Namecheap, they include privacy with your domain. So you have to provide your personal information with the registrar. That is, unless if you have a pay extra for a private registration, that's all over the internet. So with Namecheap, they include that private registration that you don't have to pay extra for. So I had used them for a long time. There's been a couple of times when I've needed some help on something, and I called them, and they had helpful support. And so in the middle of all this, I'm thinking, these are a bunch of dummies. I own the domains. You're trying to steal something or steal use of something that I control, right? So I had switched the new Cloudflare account. I also set everything on a new server, so I had a new IP address and all that. And I had just changed it at Namecheap, right? So Cloudflare gives you have it registered at Namecheap, and then Cloudflare, when you're switching over to them to manage the name servers, so at Cloudflare, they're telling the rest of the internet what to do with your domain, right? They give you what they call name servers, 2 of them, to put at your registrar, so the registrar knows, this is who is handling, we have this domain registered, this is the owner of it, and this owner wants Cloudflare to manage what's done with this domain. And so I had logged in, I had changed name servers, and it wasn't updating. I was having problems with security certificates. I was trying to update some pages. The login wasn't right. I'm like, what's the deal with this? And so I went to the Namecheap tech support. They don't really have tech support. They have a live chat, right? And I said, I want to check the resolution of these name servers because it's set to this, but it's been days and it's not resolving. Normally it only takes like, they say 48 hours, but most of the time it's within like 10 minutes that the change happens, and it hadn't yet. And so the tech support was like, no, this is right. This is resolving. So anyway, there were a couple of other things that were happening, and I thought, you know what? And they said, well, what's been going on? I said, well, I wanted to check this because I've been having issues with people attacking my sites, trying to take control of my accounts. What kind of things have been happening? And I said, well, this is what's going on. And so then they said, okay, well, we're going to send this to security. Well, then they locked my account, and this was April 4th. So they said, we're going to, you had to send a message to security. So I did that. And it has been back and forth nonstop, even today. This is after over a week of not being able to get into the account. They're basically stalling me during all this. And just today, I get a message saying, oh, give us the phone number on the account, and we'll call you and send us ID. And I'm thinking, okay, if this is what you need, then why didn't you go ask me for that day one? So anyway, I'm going to send it, but I'm also sending a complaint to the Oregon Attorney General's office about this because this is inexcusable. I don't know if this is somebody being paid off in this risk management department to just stall me as long as possible so I don't have control over my domains, or if they're just incompetent. I don't know. Or if they're overloaded and they can't get through the mess of people that this is being done to, because this is the thing. They don't have a phone number anymore. And the person on the chat that I talked to last said, oh, well, my information doesn't show that Namecheap has ever had phone support. That's a bunch of baloney. I've used it. So anyway, this is my recommendation. I was going to be including Namecheap as a recommendation in my digital toolkit, right? Because my recommendation is you don't want to be putting your life in Gmail or YouTube. You want to, or not YouTube, but Yahoo. You want to have things that you control, right? That's literally been the only thing that has saved me through all this, because I've gotten no help from any authorities or any of these platforms that should be concerned with security about their platform. I mean, they don't even know. I explained what's going on. It seems like they're completely unaware. And that's even if they have a phone number that you can call. But anyway, I'll send it, but you're also going to get a complaint filed against you. Anyway, I don't recommend Namecheap anymore. I do not recommend them after this last fiasco. That would be the last place that I would send someone. Wherever you go. And I don't even know if this is the thing. These companies that used to be good, it's like they decide that, customer service is too much of an expense and an unnecessary expense. And so they not only do they cut their staff, so they don't have the personnel to actually serve the clients that they have, but they also insulate them from their customers. You can't even call them. You get stuck in some AI loop that this is the thing. They're saving money at your expense. This has been 2 weeks now, going on 2 weeks, that I have been dealing with this, trying to get this resolved. So some executive can buy their 4th vacation home. Anyway, which personally, I think that is, this is the thing. If this is a building manager or somebody owned a building and they did not maintain it properly and they had complaints about things and knew that there were problems, then they would be held civilly, if not criminally liable. They would be. And so you have these massive companies that affect far more people than any single owner of a building, and they're being completely negligent. And this isn't even, it's not like this is unique to me. I mean, they have had studies about this, massive amounts of commentary about the direct correlation between layoffs in a tech company, and the rise in cyber attacks. Criminals go straight after it. So I'm not even sure if I'm going to be explaining this correctly, because I haven't even found really even very many articles that talk about this. But what they're doing is that somehow they're getting it's like this, I think one of the chats that I've been asking about this, because I can't find articles on it, but it's an overlay, and it's at the infrastructure level. So, you'll see a lot of people talk about session hijacking, where you happen to come across the site and the hacker gets between you and the real site, and they're creating a facade, right? And you're giving them your login information or whatever, or they're stuffing the cookies or something. So the view of the site is not the actual site. They change and alter it, right? You read about that, but that's device. It has to do with the device. You go on a different device and it's not there. This is not what's going on. It's literally at the infrastructure level, and nothing I do changes it. I mean, the one time that there was a change was when I went to my LinkedIn account, and there were 2 hacked sessions on that LinkedIn account, and when I deleted them, I got access again to the full functioning. So anyway, I think they did that to my Namecheap account too, because I was looking at it. It was looking to me like the name servers were set correctly. What's really weird is that even the tech support said that they were resolving to the correct name service, right? The correct name servers. And also another, I'm not really sure what it is, but I know that it's not resolving to my actual Cloudflare account, because when I look up the DNS, right? When I look up what the name servers are resolving and it goes to the IP addresses, they're Cloudflare IPs, but they're not my IP, the one for my account. Also, I went through and I thought, this new Gmail account that I was using to manage everything, I thought, you know what, screw this. This is obviously altered as well. I don't know what it is that they do, but it's almost like I'm thinking there must be some sort of a content management system or some sort of system to manage multiple email accounts or Gmail accounts, because that's what it's like. And it's like I've been delegated. I saw this yesterday when I was deleting all my sites off my analytic accounts again for the second time. I didn't even have access to manage my legacy marketing property or website. I had restricted access to this, and I should be the owner of this account, right? And I wasn't. So I just went through a second time. I deleted every single website off of the account, off my Google Analytics, deleted it off of Google Search Console. I had applied for another AdSense account and it got denied. It's like, oh, do you have another account? No, I closed it. So anyway, they had denied it other than that. And then I just went back again and, oh, look, it's active now. And I didn't get a notice of it. I deleted it again. I'm not going to let these jackasses launder whatever they're doing through me. That happened also on my Square accounts. And so I just deleted them. So anyway, the last one is, again, it is completely inexcusable that a registrar has basically locked access to, I think it's like 10, 11 days now. They've messed with my email accounts, because my email are my domain emails. And so I'm not getting the emails that I should be getting. They've done something to, I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's like, no, it's not directing. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing, but I think that, I'm not even going to say, I don't even know. They just put a lot of effort into being shady losers. So here's the thing. This is my newsletter domain on, because I use Kit for my newsletter. It used to be ConvertKit, but anyway, resources.racetowalk.org. So go to that and see what comes up. It should just come up, right? This is what's known as a subdomain, right? So in my Cloudflare account, I can say I want this subdomain to point over here. And so this subdomain resources.racetowalk.org actually points over to my my profile that has all my newsletters on Kit. Now, I didn't look today, but yesterday when I went to look, you can access it because the security certificate was invalid. Is it still there? Yes, it is. But this is one more evidence of the manipulation of my name servers and my sites. All of these things are crimes. All of these things are crimes. And it's just that I think that they have gotten away with it so long and been covered for by the federal agencies that they were faking engagement for. They think that no one's going to do anything to them. But I'm not going to shut up until somebody does. So anyway, that's the update. Just to recap, I have nothing to do with an unexpected journal. I haven't since August of 2024. But at this point, you should not be able to see even any of my essays on an unexpected journal as a site. You can go to my Substack, which is racetowalk.substack.com. I have all of those essays online on my Substack. You can read them for free. They were free on an unexpected journal. They are on my Substack. If you are a subscriber, a paid subscriber, you can also access the PDFs. So there's that. Nothing to do with the journal, nothing to do with any of the people. And I have sent them a cease and desist to basically stay the hell out of my stuff. To all the people who profited from the stolen work that these people created AI models with and generated a ton of stuff with. You were the recipient of stolen property. I never gave permission for my work to be used for an AI model, to be plagiarized and used in ghostwriting. So just FYI, it would probably be a good idea to take it down. I want every video that has been used, was created using my words, every podcast, every website, I want it taken down. I want the revenue from it. I want 50% of the revenue and all of the watch times from the videos, and I want the videos taken down. If you have a problem with that, if this were music and a content ID, I would get 100% of the revenue. So 50% of the revenue, 100% of the watch time moved back over to my account, and don't tell me you can't because you've stolen from me, and also it taken down. Now, here's the thing that makes it very, very easy to identify this. Especially my essay on Melchizedek and Bombadil. There's a ton of them. If you look at what's out there now, you would think that, oh, that was just a common thought. It was not. I wrote that essay in the fall of 2017 in Michael Ward's class. Go ask him to see how common it was. I had never read the books for Lord of the Rings before. Unlike these friends, I'm not a plagiarist. If there were people out there talking about a connection between Melchizedek and Bombadil, I would have cited them, okay? Because I do my research and I cite my sources, unlike them. It wasn't there. They did not exist. But part of their poisoning campaign is they have to basically pollute the internet with a bunch of related articles related to that and videos. I've seen videos that are done with that. I mean, they just create content like most of the videos that are out there that are popular, they're not people with opinions. They're these livestock puppets that are speaking the words that their owners give them based on stolen work. So here's the thing, I want it down, and maybe I won't press criminal charges against you. There's just that. All these channels out there that have been claiming all these great insights that aren't theirs, they don't deserve to exist. They need to be taken down. Anyway, but going back to Melchizedek, the inspiration from that did not even come from the books, okay? It didn't come from the Lord of the Rings books. I made the connection because I had been studying Second Temple literature where they're like the Apocrypha, like the Book of Jubilees and the Book of Enoch. And this progression of thought of the Jewish Messiah from just being a human Messiah to the progression where there was an expectation that this Messiah would also be a divine figure, okay? That's where the idea came from. And I had been studying that, and that is why I made the connection. But if you look at, it changes all the time. In that cease and desist, it included stopping the negative SEO campaigns. It's still going on. Like literally to this day, it's still going on because I just did a search a few days ago to see what came up when I did a search for Melchizedek, and my article on Substack was coming up under a PDF for the article on the journal. It doesn't even come up at all. They're still trying to tank my stuff. Do you want to know what they did when I first, okay, so this was on Sunday. Do you want to know what they were doing on Monday? They're trying to make a way for, rather than just remove it, right? Just removing it. When I went on the site just to see if they had done anything, and there were a whole bunch of issues that weren't showing. I switched IP addresses, switched to VPN, switched IPs, and then it's just the same as normal. They were trying, rather than just removing them like I asked, they were trying to make a way just to toggle the view of it based on who was seeing it. So I would think that they were gone, but somebody else, they could still use a profit from it. Because that's the kind of people they are, snakes. I had to, and knowing that, I had to send a DCMA request to the host. And I'm assuming that that's why I looked today and it was gone. I'm assuming that's what they're responding to. Because the site would be, if they don't remove it, the site would be taken down entirely. But anyway, that's just what's been going on. So just to recap, if you see something weird about your accounts and it doesn't seem like it's functioning normally, it's probably not. It's probably not. And I would, like I've been talking about in my digital defense toolkit, take screenshots of it, document what happens, and then see if you can get somebody on, security at some of these tech places that will understand what you're saying and actually do something about it. The other thing too is that personally, I'm trying to manage my own stuff, but one of the things that I'm going to be making a priority is advocating with my state representatives and legislators in general about holding these tech companies responsible for their negligence in maintaining their systems. Google has this reputation for security, which it does not deserve at all. It does not deserve it. And it's basically like this huge castle that's been eaten out by termites, and then all these parasites are inside of it and taking advantage of it. And the people paying the cost are the everyday users. They just are. So also, just a final word for anybody else that contributed to an unexpected journal. Part of the reason first of all, I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate your contributions. It was a lot of work, but I did really enjoy being part of it. It's very sad how it ended, but it was good while it lasted, right? It was good while it was good. Here's the thing. I think it was September of 2023 when the writer's agreement was changed. I don't know how it was changed at this point. I was being hacked. I had just had all my accounts taken over. I was beginning to suspect the people that were associated with the journal, and I was like, I saw that had been changed, and I was like, I'm done. But anytime before that, if you submitted under the original writer's agreement, you own the copyright. And if you see that your work has been altered, because that was one of the primary reasons that I decided to demand all my work to be removed. It was because I knew that my work had been altered and sabotaged, and they're just not, at this point, not trustworthy to be a repository of my work. So if you need backup of that, please feel free to contact me, and I will state, you own the copyright. They just had a right, the journal just had a right to publish for those issues, right? They didn't have any rights to assign. They didn't have a right to do anything else with it. They just had a specific right to use. And so, anyway, it's your work. And so, anyway, that's my little update for the day. And I'm just going to be interested to see if this came through this time, or if once again they sabotaged my stream. But if they did, more damages, right? I know at this point, if we had chattel slavery, I'd own them and their descendants for the next 5 generations with all the stuff that they've done. But we'll just see. We'll just see how it goes. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your day and a great upcoming weekend. And I'll talk to you later.